Oh, Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this evening's board meeting. Ms. Contra, let's call this meeting to order at, looks like about 6:02 p.m. Just as a reminder, the district is still under a mask mandate, so we appreciate everybody properly wearing their masks across our entire footprint, including this boardroom and at the podium. Thank you for that. Ms. Hill, would you mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence this evening?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to Section 3, Address Agenda. 3.1, Address Agenda, recommend changes and consider approval of consent agenda. Does any board member have any items they would like to pull from the consent?
President Sandoval?
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to pull 6.8, please.
Okay. Which is, I'll second that. Ms. Hill, any items that you'd like to pull from consent? No? Dr. Sorensen?
No, sir.
Good. All right. I don't have anything either. So with that said, I do need a motion to approve the agenda minus 6.8.
I move to approve the agenda minus 6.8.
I will second.
President Sandoval,
Yes, sir.
did we have a request for public comment on a
On
consent item?
You know what, actually, I think we did. Hang tight. Thank you for that. Let's see here. Yes, we do. We have, so board members, I'd like to pull 6.2. There is a public comment tied to this line item, so if I can get a second on that, I'd appreciate it.
I second.
Ms. Contra, I'll pause for a sec to allow you to move those things around. Thank you for that, Dr. Reynolds. With that said, I do need a motion and a second to approve 3.1 minus 6.8 and 6.2 in the of the consent.
I move to approve the agenda minus 6.8 and 6.2.
I second.
Ms. Contra, we have a motion by Ms. Underhill and a second by Dr. Sorensen. Board members, please cast your votes. Should we go through a voice vote, Ms. Contra? We have Ms. Pingarelli here now. That'll give her time to log on.
Yes, sir, we can certainly do that. I have opened up the online voting, but we can walk through a voice vote. Mr. Sandoval?
Yes.
Mrs. Underhill?
Yes.
Dr. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
And Mrs. Pingarelli?
Yay.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, board members. Thank you, Ms. Contra. Ms. Pingarelli, welcome. Good to see you. Thank you. All right, moving on to Section 4, recognitions, 4.1. Ms. Airy.
Good evening, President Sandoval, members of the board, Dr. Reynolds, and guests. I do have a recognition for you this evening, but before I share, it is my pleasure to introduce to you another new face that is joining our cabinet this evening. I'm so pleased to have the student body president from Sunrise Mountain High School, Michael Robbins, with us tonight. If we can give him a warm Peoria welcome. Michael is one of our standout members of the Superintendent Student Advisory Council, and as I shared with you all at our last meeting, we're so excited to have many of those students joining us over the course of the next few board meetings here at our governing board meetings. And I'll share that a little bit about Michael. In addition to his dedication to the Sunrise Student Council, he really already has his sights set on his post-secondary plans. He was recently accepted into Arizona State University's Barrett Honors College, so go Devils. And following his time there, he has his aspirations are to become a history teacher and eventually also lead a student council serving as a student council advisor. So Michael, I hope you know you always have a home here in Peoria, and to think of us upon completion. We were sure to introduce him to Dr. Davidson this evening, but a very warm welcome to you tonight, Michael. And President Sandoval, I will pause in case there are any welcome remarks from the board.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for that, and welcome, sir. It's a pleasure to have you here this evening. Ms. Hill?
No comments.
Dr. Sorensen? No, sir. Ms. Andrea?
Yeah, just welcome. Thanks for being here, and thanks for all you're doing.
Ms. Pingarelli?
Well, welcome, and I hope it's not going to be a super long meeting for you.
Thank you for that, Ms. Pingarelli. We do have a reputation here at PO State, but it's all good stuff. So, but again, welcome, and it's a pleasure to have you here this evening.
Thank you, everybody.
President Sandoval, members of the board, and guests, it's my pleasure to also highlight a truly monumental moment we had here in the Peoria Unified School District last weekend. We hosted our first of our 2 closed point of distribution sites to provide access to the COVID-19 vaccine to educators and childcare workers all across the Northwest Valley, including access for our very own Peoria Unified staff. I am so thrilled to report that we had 1,080 vaccines administered over the course of our 2-day event. It really was remarkable and a tremendous undertaking led by Mr. Sean Duguid, our Chief Operations Safety and Risk Management Officer, as well as many others who put in countless hours of dedication, time, and effort. I want to share a little bit more about them, but before I do, take a look at this highlight reel from last weekend's event.
breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 2 days for each child. So we have the opportunity where we have a lot of people coming to us, and the goal is to be able to offer as many meals as possible to kids. This was an easy way that they're here. It makes it accessible. It's free for any kid, and this was a great setup.
Well, President Sandoval, as you could see from that video, there was a tremendous amount of volunteers involved to pull off this event. You saw a few of their names listed, but I really would be remiss if I didn't mention a few of them specifically. First, a really big thank you to Liberty High School for hosting us. They were involved in this event, having to utilize many of their team members and all their resources. So we really appreciate the administration team and the maintenance team at Liberty for their support. You saw in that closing shot Lisa Alexander, and she mobilized our team of nurses, and they just were phenomenal. So we were just so thankful to have them there and for the support and care that they provided. Many of the volunteers that were there, and you saw over 90 of them, we had from our Faith Council, the partnership we have through many of the faith leaders here across our school district, our Peoria United Parent Council team of parents, many of them were there, as well as the Peoria Education Foundation. A few of our lead staff members were Ryan Reese, Cindy Bryant. I shared Lisa Alexander and Mona Rodriguez. We appreciate all of them very much for what they did. Our food service team working incredibly hard as well. That was a partnership through USDA where we are able to provide free meals to families, anyone with children, either in the car with them or at home. And distributing over 7,000 meals, I believe, was a record for that team. So we're quite proud of the efforts that went into this event. More importantly, we're quite proud that we were able to provide access to so many, to such an important part of our mitigation strategy here in the Peoria Unified School District. It's making our community as well as our schools a safer place to be. So we were pleased to host that. Stand for any questions you may have, President Sandoval.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Ms. Hill?
I appreciate that you shared this information, and it was a great outpouring of resources, so thank you so much for hosting that.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Dr. Sorensen?
No, sir.
Ms. Underhill?
I don't have any questions, though.
Okay. Questions, comments, Ms. Farrelly? Okay. No, it's, I would agree with Ms. Hill. I mean, it was, I was able to attend, I guess, the morning shift on Saturday morning, and just to see the number of individuals that you spoke about who came out to volunteer to make sure that, you know, Peoria's finest and other educators were, you know, able to come out and receive their first vaccine. So it's just, again, it's just a continued testament to the district, you know, and our intentionality as it relates to enriching the lives of others every day. And so I really appreciate Mr. Dukegood, Danielle, I know you were out there working really hard, and I know Dr. Reynolds was out there, but all the other volunteers that you mentioned, just thank you very much for being there, and you know, looking forward to, I think the second event is
President
when?
Sandoval, our second vaccine distribution is on March 27th and 28th, and we are in the process of scheduling all of those appointments for staff members or for any members of the education community that were there with us last weekend.
Perfect. Well, very good. Well, thank you again. I appreciate it. Job well done. Okay, moving on to 4.2, board comments. Ms. Hill?
I have no comments.
Thank you. Dr. Sorensen?
No, sir.
Ms. Underhill?
Okay, so I'm talking about what you just talked about, but I didn't know if I was supposed to ask questions then or comment. But yeah, I just wanted to thank you all again so much and really thank all of our staff and educators that are out there. Were able to get their vaccine. I think this whole thing has really shown what a amazing resource our public schools have been throughout all of this whole situation and continue to be. And I know that we were providing vaccinations to even charter school teachers, et cetera, in our area. So that's just phenomenal what our district does for our community so that our kids and our families can be safe. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for that, Ms. Underhill. Ms. Pingerelli? All right. Yeah, I think I too wanted to mention the that event that took place. I think again, just thank you for a job well done. In addition to that, I did have the opportunity to be the pronouncer for the regional spelling bee that took place last Friday, the 19th, right? I'll tell you, it was the week leading up to that. It was probably some of the more nerving days, studying all the words, making sure that once these students came up front, that I was pronouncing them properly, to making sure that I put them in a position to be successful. But I don't know, I probably lost 10 pounds just because I was so nervous the week leading up to it. So it was scary. But that said, first and second place went to two individuals out of PUSD, one from Foothills and the other one from Heritage. So I think there was about maybe 8 districts or so represented in the region. And so just another proud moment. We're really all the students, that made it to that level. And again, it is a testament to our teachers who continue to put our youth in a position to be successful and inspire hope in them every day. So teachers, thank you very much, for all you do for our children. Really appreciate it. All right. That said, we're moving on to 4.3, superintendent comments. Dr. Reynolds.
Thank you, President Sandoval, Governing Board, Cabinet, and guests. I will just piggyback on that. The Maricopa County Region 4 Spelling Bee took place, as President Sandoval talked about, last Friday. And we are proud to celebrate 2 winners. Braden Matthews, an 8th grader at Heritage, again, as President Sandoval mentioned, was the champion with the winning word, extinguish. And then Christine Koenig, an 8th grader from Foothills, secured the 3rd place spot. Braden will advance to the state spelling bee in March, so we wish him luck as he moves on to this competition. C-O-M-P. I have it right in front of me, so that's cheating. We received an update regarding the Maricopa County Exemplary Principal Award. If you remember, we had mentioned earlier that Becky Burhow, principal at Desert Harbor Elementary School, was one of 18 semifinalists out of 1,200 school principals in Maricopa County. While she did not advance to the final phase, we are incredibly proud of her and her leadership at Desert Harbor Elementary School. I'm also pleased to share that we have 2 finalists in the National Merit Scholarship Program. Peoria Unified finalists include Cactus High School senior Strider Johnston and Sunrise Mountain High School senior Charles Haskins. As finalists, Strider and Charles will be considered for the National Merit Scholars Program, and those winners will be announced between April and July of this year. And the National Merit Program is one of the premier scholarship programs, so we're very proud of them. We love updates from former graduates, so we wanted to wish congratulations to Braxton Croto, a Liberty High School alum and current scholar athlete on the football team at the University of California, Berkeley. He was chosen as a scholar athlete for embracing a holistic mentality for both an internal and external perspective, welcoming challenging opportunities and maintaining self-discipline both on and off the field. And during COVID times, that's something to be said. So an email directly from Berkeley stated, "We are very proud of Braxton and acknowledge the role Liberty played in preparing him both academically and athletically. It is exciting to see our graduates thrive, and we are proud of him for his achievements." Next, our Human Resources Department held its first ever virtual teacher career fair last evening. And while this is a challenging time to try to recruit new and highly qualified teachers, we're thankful that our staff was able to step up and they were innovative and continued to this important work to attract the best and the brightest here to Peoria Unified. I'm proud to share that more than 100 individuals attended the virtual event, and it featured a video showcasing why Peoria, and hosted guest speakers from our district's administrative team, including Laura Vesley, Darren Schoolcraft, Regina Lewis, Eric Stone, Dustin Hammond, and Robert Panzer. I know Dr. Davidson will be updating all of you in this week's board report. Earlier this month, our Director of Arts Education, Robert Panzer, had the opportunity to be one of the presenters at the annual Kennedy Center Partners in Education at the National Conference. The presentation at the national conference called Creating and Sustaining a Local Teacher Artist Program came out of the work that was started 2 years ago when two teams partnered to create a local teaching artist program for the greater Phoenix area. And now in its third year, the ASU Gamage Teacher Artist Program has a pool of 66 local artists trained in the Kennedy Arts Integration Method, and leads the residencies in schools. Peoria Unified is a founding member of the partnership that does now include ASU Gamage, Mesa Public Schools, and the Musical Instrument Museum. So thank you for your dedication, Mr. Panzer. And we would like to wish Mrs. Underhill a very happy birthday week. So happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
Happy birthday, Ms. Underhill. Thank you, Dr. Reynolds. All right, moving on to Section 5, public comment. Request to address the governing board regarding matters not included on the agenda. Just as a reminder, again, as a governing board, we're very grateful for everyone expressing their voices and coming to these meetings and making sure that we're well informed from, different perspectives and lenses and, celebrations and concerns, et cetera. We definitely welcome all of that. With regard to open meeting laws, it does require us to, or actually excludes us from being able to make any comments on items that are not included on the agenda. In addition, Dr. Reynolds and team will respond to your comments, concerns, questions accordingly, after this meeting or in the coming days. So thank you again for taking the time. So with that said, we will move on to our first public comment, which is from Ms. Becky Smith.
Hello.
Hello.
Really quick, I just wanted to say that I've found out through a lot of people, there are other parents that kind of want to be here and have their voices heard, but they're scared because we are being labeled racist and crazy people. We are neither, I promise you. We're willing to meet with anybody on your own time and have a civil discussion. We want to get along. We want to come to a resolution and compromise, but we have valid concerns as parents. I'm going to play a clip that I would like everyone to hear. This is Illinois, but it is in, it is in our country.
Illinois State Board of Education,
and I think it's important.
This new rule for statewide curriculum mandates called the Culturally Responsive Teaching and Leading Standards. And right now it's pending before the Illinois General Assembly and will be voted on February 16th to put into all curriculum for K through 12 schools in Illinois. But essentially, it's a new law that forces teachers to, in their words, embrace and encourage progressive viewpoints and perspectives. That's, fancy buzzwords, but what does that actually mean? Essentially, teachers are mandated by law to discuss current political controversies in class. They have to organize what they call action civics, which are field trips, student protests, lobbying expeditions on behalf of causes like gun control or the Green New Deal.
Point of order.
They have to admit that there's
Are we
unlimited
able
numbers
to
of
do this?
teachers
I
and
mean,
prioritize representation
this is
in
not
the
your
classroom.
public comment. This is somebody else's public
State
comment.
legislative bill, and they're doing everything they can to bring this to the national level
sorry, I just
and
wanted to
essentially
check.
implement it as part of Common Core for all public schools nationwide. This is in addition to critical race theory, which is already a problem in Chicago.
Oh, it's terrible.
If you guys aren't familiar with the 1619 2019 project from the New York Times that's among the most woke curriculum you could
Personally, I think
possibly
it'd be
imagine.
best if we didn't
Already been
continue to
implemented
play
through all
it
Chicago
if
public
it's not something that's allowable within our open meeting laws.
Oh, I don't know if it is, but it's something that's being put into place statewide, and it got approved. And it's basically asking teachers to do certain things in their classroom, whether they believe in them or not, and then to have kids go on field trips to support Black Lives Matter event, Green New Deal events, gun control events, abortion events, gender, events, whatever. My point is, everyone thinks that we are crazy that this is not happening, and it just got approved on February 17th for the entire state of Illinois. And if a teacher refuses to teach it, they are fired and they lose their teaching certificate. So I just want teachers to be aware that this is happening in our country. And if you refuse to teach something that your state mandates you have to teach, you could lose your
So this
teaching
is an
certificate. So people think that we're crazy. We're not crazy. It's happening in our country, within our country.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Thank you, Ms. Underhill. Okay, our next public comment comes from Devin, say Mosler, is that correct? Perfect. Being the pronouncer helped with my phonetics.
Good evening, President Sandoval, Dr. Reynolds, and governing board members. My name is Devin Mosler, and I'm an instructional coach currently working at Ira Murphy. As an instructional coach, I have the unique opportunity to observe classrooms not only at Ira Murphy, but across our school district. Over the last few months, I've watched or attended every board meeting, and have felt deeply saddened and dismayed with the perspective that some of our community members hold for our teachers and our district's dedication, instructional practice, and commitment to our students and their achievement. In an effort to change that dreary narrative, I would like to use my time tonight to share some positivity. Tonight, I would like to celebrate Katie Fantas. Katie is new to our district, moving recently from Ohio. She is currently our virtual 5th grade teacher at Ira Murphy. Each week, I join Katie online to observe her instructional practice. Amazingly, Katie has taken this new challenge in virtual teaching, not only in stride, but she's rocked it. Katie has developed a trusting, safe online environment where her students feel comfortable and confident to share their thinking, questions, and even sometimes their challenges. Katie provides exemplary, aligned, engaging instruction, modeling and scaffolding each of her learning objectives at a pace that allows students to practice the new learning on an app named Nearpod. Katie is able to view her students' work in real time, allowing the opportunity to not only engage with her students in her lessons, but also check for understanding before moving on to her next sub-objective. Students are showing marked improvement and growth as a result of Katie's hard work and great attention to details in her planning, preparation, and instructional delivery. I, for one, am grateful Katie Fantas, along with many other amazing teachers, administrators, and staff, have chosen PUSD as their school home. Thank you for listening and your time.
Thank you, Ms. Mosler. Next public comment comes from Ms. Christina Rogers.
Okay, I know this is a no-no, but I can't read without my glasses, and they fog when I have it over my nose. So I'm going to do my best to try to keep it there.
Thank you for that.
Okay. Hello, and thank you once again for listening to our concerns. I've been thinking a lot about the teachers who walked out on our children and the things that took place the last meeting. Teachers coming up here talking about all the wonderful things that have happened in their classrooms, how kids are thriving in their classrooms. So my question to those teachers would be, why would you organize a walkout on those children that rely on you for their future? Basically, the teachers just proved to us why it's so important for us as parents who continue to fight for our children to be in school learning. I'm not up here trying to get anybody fired, but I will say they need to be held accountable for their actions so it does not happen again. I'm a flight attendant, and in December, COVID protocols changed. Without our approval or us being asked, we went from middle seats being blocked off to full planes, no longer sitting apart on our jump seats. And if anyone knows, our jump seats are very tiny, so we're close together. If I were to go onto Facebook and organize a stick out and call my fellow flight attendants and say, hey, I don't like the new rules that they've put in place, let's everybody call out, I would be fired, along with everybody else who called out sick that day. This is how most jobs work. Rules change to best serve your customer. Our children are their customers. So for those teachers to come up here last week and tell us as parents, if we don't like it, we don't like what they're doing, that we can leave, that it's our choice to leave the public school and go somewhere else, private or charter, those words should be concerning not only to you as board members, but as to them as well. Because we pay their paycheck, and without us, they don't have a job. As a flight attendant on a plane, when someone asks for 4 drinks on at one time on a 1-hour flight with 3 of us and 175 of them, or they ask for 2 ice cubes of crab apples with a splash of Sprite, or they hand me a bag of vomit or a poopy diaper or peas all over the seat for me to clean up, or urine in the overhead bin that leaks on customers' heads, or hands me a poopy bag when they come out of the bathroom with their underwear and socks in it, or if I've told somebody for the 10th time to put their dog back in their kennel and put it back under their seat. I can go on and on with stories, but the bottom line, if I told these customers to go fly somewhere else, guess what would eventually happen? Planes would be grounded one at a time. Flight attendants would be fired one at a time. I would be out of a job. Those customers, whether I like it or not, pay my paycheck, just like we pay the teachers' paychecks. Whether they like it or not, they're here to serve our children. And I really do feel like the board members are trying their best to deal with all the new things that are being thrown at them, best serve our customers. I will say, last week's meeting, when the teachers came up and thanked the board members for meeting their demands and then corrected herself to say request, and then allowing unnecessary behavior of teachers coming up here with nothing to say but openly saying that they're going to take their allotted time, I would hope that board members would be asked to sit down, and that type of behavior is not productive. I pray the board members remember.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers. I appreciate it. Next public comment comes from Rhett Penn.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Reynolds, and fellow community members. I have been a music educator in this district for 8 of my 10 years teaching. The last time I was here, I mentioned that I have a 4-year-old and now a 4-month-old boy whose teeth just came out, so life is fun. And I currently work at Foothills Fine Arts Academy with a group of teachers and administrators who I am grateful to call family. I do love that I teach in a district that values arts education. And last March, when the quarantine happened, it broke many an art teacher's heart because it was before the Arts Festival, a widely attended community organized event that shows that our district is truly not only an academically outstanding district, but one that can create beauty in this world that can really be unsurpassed. When my son was born, it gave me a lot of pride to walk through the hallways of Abrazo Hospital and see art from Sunrise Mountain and Ironwood by students there. That could give a little bit of color to the parents' lives as they were having to bring children in during COVID-19. Students are not customers. They are the future. And it seems that parents do not know the motto of this district: every student, every day, prepared to shape tomorrow. We train leaders, and anything that can hinder their progress in learning and self-discovery hinders their ability to lead. They do not become leaders. They simply become led. Our district has had pride in this mission for many years. And I'm not a professional in the field of psychology, but I'm sure that there are studies found that talks about the detrimental effects on children when parents argue in front of them. The same could probably be assumed for teachers and parents arguing about their children here in this public forum that's viewable on YouTube forever. And when we are in a battle, children are the casualties. The more that complaints happen, the more a child becomes apathetic towards their educational experience and less invested to lead through the schools. Let's be professional with one another. Instead of being angry at actions taken, let's look to the reasons why they were and express empathy. Lastly, I'm very proud to announce that the arts teachers in Foothills Fine Arts Academy were nominated as finalists for the Governor's Award of Excellence in Art due to the kind words of another community member.
Time, Mr. Penn. Thank you, sir. Next public comment comes from Ms. Heather Rooks.
Hello, board members and superintendent. First, I wanted to point out that there has been many comments in your board meetings that some of us are racist. And if we don't like it here in PUSD, we have other choices. That's very welcoming in PUSD. On the discussion that we are being called racist, I wanted to read a few quotes. Candace Owens stated, "Race doesn't matter. It's actually the values, the principles people are putting into place." Melissa Tate, author of Choice Privilege, stated, "The whole narrative that America is a systematic racist country is a total contradiction to the experience that I've had in this country. I don't teach my kids to see color. I teach my kids the content of somebody's character." Many parents are pulling their kids out of this district because this is causing division, and the district continues to ignore state statutes and policies. In reference to Parental Bill of Rights, one school is still denying access to parents on reviewing materials and instruction. The right to access instructional materials as directed by ARS 15-730, Arizona State Statute 15-102, parental involvement in the school. I believe this includes materials in a class from previous weeks and months. I think it would be a great opportunity for the district to educate their staff about the state statutes on parental rights, since a select few keeps violating these statutes. I also wanted to make note for our legislative update. On February 22nd, the Senate Rules Committee heard the SB 1456 sex education instruction, parental rights, which, among other things, will prohibit sex education instruction for pupils in kindergarten through grade 4. Please call your district legislators and support this bill for our education. I wanted to know what policy there is for the district administration telling a parent they can't share emails from the district to others or on social media. Aren't those emails to the parent considered their public record to share? We keep coming up here and talking to you guys. Things are still happening against parents' rights in this school district. And I don't see why select few of teachers are upset about that when we're up here taking care of our kids. These are our children. We're entrusting them to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rooks. Next public comment comes from Ms. Stephanie Volker.
Good evening, President Sandoval, Dr. Reynolds, board members, cabinet, and guests. My name is Stephanie Volker. I am a Peoria resident, a PUSD parent, and the social worker at Ironwood High School. When you look at the PUSD website, there's a wealth of information on what sets this district apart and what contributes to the stellar reputation
that brings students to our schools, many of which come from outside of our district boundaries to attend our 42 elementary and high schools. From the vision, every student, every day, to the mission statement, prepare every student for a successful future as a responsible citizen who actively contributes to society, the community, and the workforce. There are a number of resolutions which this mission statement are reached through, some of which talk about creating, maintaining, delivering quality curriculum and instruction that meets the needs of all students for the 21st century and beyond. Prioritizing relationships and focusing on the safety and social emotional well-being of students and staff. And lastly, fostering a culture of active community engagement and inclusiveness. Moreover, if you look further down the website, you see that there are a set of values. Integrity is one that's listed, which states our consistent and uncompromising adherence to strong moral and ethical principles is illustrated through our words and behavior. And equity. Our behaviors are informed through opportunities that ensure equitable access for all staff and students to be successful. Additionally, on the very same page, we see the non-discrimination statement. And I feel that I've read enough of your own website that I don't need to go on. But unfortunately, it seems that our publicly elected board has lost sight of the missions, values, and vision that the Peoria Unified School District holds. Has our board and superintendent forgotten that within our district there are 24 Title I schools, almost half of our students, roughly 41% participation in the free and reduced meal program, which is consistent year to year according to District Food Services Department. There's so much diversity among our 36,000 plus students, and allowing our public spaces and meetings to be a vehicle for hate speech and racist rhetoric goes directly against all that PUSD has publicly stated that it stands for. The board does not only serve those that are able to come to meetings, have the means for transportation to the DAC, time to take off of work, and access to childcare so that they can be here. This board serves a district that is comprised of students and families from all walks of life, from every race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender, religion, and age. I implore the board to think about who they serve and how these comments impact our community.
Next public comment comes from Ms. Amy Souza.
Good evening. I'm here to respond to one of my daughter's 7th grade teachers who spoke at the last board meeting. I had intended on emailing the teacher privately, but apparently some teachers are now sharing emails that are sent within the district regarding our children with other teachers, so I figured I would just do it here publicly and save everyone a step. This email is in response to Kim Downey, who is actually here this evening, to her public speech at the last school district board meeting on February 11th. Ms. Downey, first I'd like to point out that you and I have never had any negative communication regarding your teaching of Zoe. Zoe is my daughter. As a matter of fact, we've never had any communication whatsoever until now. I want you to know that my husband and I will always express our concerns about our child and our child's education to their teachers, and the fact that you verbally attacked parents, including us, who are catching and calling out teachers who are knowingly teaching volatile, deeply controversial, and divisive topics such as BLM and George Floyd, is more than concerning. Valid, reliable, and verifiable information, you said. It is so irresponsible to even put those two sentences next to each other. I'm going to submit to you that if you had 5 different people discussing George Floyd, you'd have 5 differing opinions surrounding the circumstances of his death. Not a topic for a 7th grade classroom without my permission, period. We don't need you, her other teachers, or anyone injecting their opinions about topics such as this into our child disguised as opposing views or responsible dialogue. You also said that your students are like your kids, but they aren't your kids. Zoe is not your child. She is mine and my husband's child. And we will always advocate for her safety and well-being first. Frankly, it now concerns us greatly that you are Zoe's teacher, considering how you obviously feel towards parents like us that care passionately about their children's education. Teachers are being attacked, bullied, and belittled, you said in your speech. I submit that it's you, Ms. Downey, who's doing the attacking, bullying, and belittling by suggesting that if we parents don't like what's going on in the sanctity of the classrooms, then, and I quote you, "It is so fortunate for them," meaning us concerned parents, "that they have other options in Arizona, a school choice open enrollment state." Fortunately for us parents, we also have a Parents' Bill of Rights that affords us the fundamental right to direct our child's education and moral upbringing without being harassed. Also disturbing is how the teachers at Sunset Heights are obviously sharing the personal emails and phone calls that parents are sending and making regarding their own child's education, which seems like quite an invasion of the minor's child's privacy, with each other, rather than discussing it with the school vice principal or the principal in order for you to have all this salacious information that you brought before the board. That's also very concerning. Lastly, considering you have been a teacher for 31 years, as you said in your speech, I would like to suggest that you bump up your teaching agenda, as it's completely inappropriate to not have prepared enough content to fill an entire class period. Seventh graders don't need a half-hour nap during precious
Point of
class time.
order. I'm sorry, but I don't feel like our public comment is the place to have a personal dialogue. I should have said that previously. Again, I feel like this is something that we need to discuss. This is just not appropriate decorum for our meeting.
Well, I'm representing myself and my child.
Yes,
and
but you're doing that on a very
you're
personal
cutting
level.
into my time. This is public comment. And you did it to another parent too.
Exactly, because
I
I feel like you guys are taking
time.
public comment out of order. I really do.
But it's okay for the teachers to say what they have to say and nobody interrupts them.
Ms. Souza, time's up. Ms. Underhill,
No,
thank
she
you.
cut into my time. I'd like to finish.
It was actually at 0 when she
No,
chimed
it
in.
wasn't, because I've timed this many times. And she interrupted me and cut into my time.
Ms. Contra, when you take a look at the time, when I looked at the clock when Ms. Underhill chimed in, there was maybe a couple seconds left, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Can you
There
put
was
2
3
seconds?
seconds.
Can you put 3 seconds on the clock,
Please feel free to
please?
share this email with anybody in the district, as you already have. And I have nothing to hide. I stand behind 100% of everything I said. So does my husband. So, thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Souza. As the podium is cleaned, I'm going to press pause and just reiterate a statement that I made last board meeting, which is that this board does expect civility during our meetings and respect for one another. We do absolutely applaud everyone for coming and expressing their voices during our board meetings during this particular time, but any individual or personal attacks, those will not be tolerated. And again, this is a space for collaborative and productive and solution-oriented conversations. But again, we do welcome your comments. Thank you. Next public comment comes from Ms. Amy Lemons.
Okay, Amy Lemons, teacher, parent, now I would say intermediate public speaker. My plan was to filibuster again for 3 minutes. Been called out on that today. However, I just do want to point out a couple things that on points today. Spelling bee. I really applaud the fact that you did that. I used to run the spelling bee at my school for about 12 years, and I, like you, studied for about a week prior, and I wrote little notes for every time I pronounced those words, and it really is quite stressful. So kudos to you. On the COVID vaccine, that was the event. Sorry, I'm really wired right now. I appreciate you guys bringing that in. As someone who's been now vaccinated twice, I feel like it's super important. And my only ask is that, my only ask is that possibly the next time you guys open up the meeting or open up the vaccines to family members of the teachers so that we can keep them safe as well. All right. This was sent to me earlier, and since then I've seen it on about 6 other teachers' pages, so in this current circumstance, I'd like to share it. You don't improve education by demoralizing the people who have to do the work every day. You just don't. You think that your guys' comments and the board, thank you for stopping some of these, I appreciate that. Other teachers who are looking to come into this district are watching these meetings, and I'm actually afraid that we are going to lose a ridiculous amount of teachers and our whole district is going to suffer, which is counterproductive to everything that I'm trying to do as a parent and as a staff member, but more as a parent because my kids still go here and they will be for the next 7 years unless things don't change. On the talking point that, you know, the parents were asked to leave, but another parent said that, not the teacher. You do want to attract the best and the brightest. Dr. Reynolds said that earlier. And we just want to make sure we're doing that in the right manner at this point. Your ultimate goal, I hope, is to have strong schools, and you're going to need the staff to do that. And if we don't make a very clear indicator that the staff is important, then you're going to lose that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lemons. Next public comment comes from Ms. Jessica Peck.
Good evening, board members and Dr. Reynolds. I'm a Peoria resident, a prospective parent, a wife of a Peoria teacher, a teacher myself, and an LD 21 resident. At the previous meeting, there was discussion of requiring permission slips for lessons on politics and current events. As a parent, I do understand this concern. There are things that my children will learn outside our home, at church and at school and at their grandparents' house that possibly we don't agree with. However, I do remind myself the home environment is the #1 most influential thing for our children, and my husband and I are secure enough in our beliefs and our family commitments to trust that we can address any issues that might arise. If our children come home with different ideas and questions, I truly do look forward to the difficult yet amazing conversations where we will wrestle with a topic and I get to see my children grow cognitively. My kids right now are 3 and 5, so I don't get a lot of that, okay? What an amazing privilege we do have as parents to help equip our children with critical thinking skills as well as compassion. Similarly, as a social studies educator, the idea of requiring permission slips for every single politics and current events is, quite frankly, absurd to me how that would actually be enforced. These things are literally in our standards, as Ms. Underhill and Dr. Sorensen know. If parents were to prevent their students from engaging in these lessons, they would be depriving them of the opportunity to develop critical thinking skills. Lessons on politics and current events is social studies, helping our students learn about the world around them, a world that directly impacts them, even at their age, and within which they have a current role. We expose our students to a variety of viewpoints while maintaining a neutral stance ourselves, I promise. As an educator, we promise that we do not want to brainwash or indoctrinate our students. Instead, we deeply want our students to know what they believe and why they believe it. Lastly, I want to say that when students are given the chance to delve into complex, controversial subjects, they can do amazing things. My husband teaches high school history and English here in Peoria. When he brings home student work to grade, I'm thoroughly impressed. I just see how detailed his student work is. They're analyzing texts and concepts. They're writing position papers way better than anything I wrote in high school. They're citing research, addressing counter arguments, and dealing with things that I didn't necessarily have the opportunity to really delve into at their age. They're learning not how to examine current issues from all angles and developing their own thoughts, not in an echo chamber, but being refined by the perspectives of their classmates, as well as through research, which is what we're required to teach our students. Requiring permission slips would be an intrusive, onerous regulation that would hamstring and intimidate our teachers. I highly respect the integrity and professionalism of all the Peoria teachers that I know, and I hope that you do too. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Beck. Final comment comes from Ms. Trina Berg. Final comment tied to this line item. Thank you.
Good evening, President Sandoval, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Reynolds, Cabinet. My name is Trina Berg. I'm president of the Peoria Education Association. I'm here tonight, I guess kind of on a personal level as well. By the way, I have a sick day tomorrow in case anyone is curious, since this seems to be such a topic. I've heard that they don't want me fired, but they've said publicly multiple times they want me fired. Then they said they want something done about it. The problem is this is my personal file, and they don't know if something has been done or not. So the assumption right now is that nothing has been done or said to me over this. So at this point, the assumption should just be, I have heard from my evaluator, I have heard from my district, and whatever was going to happen has happened. It's a month and a half later. My students have been through 2 units since this time. I don't know, I honestly don't know why this is still being discussed. As far as like, why would we cause this sick out and walk out on our kids? Teacher work conditions are student learning conditions. We were very clear as to why we initiated the sick out. I never once hid that I was doing this. It was out there. I put my name on there. You said you are willing to meet with me, or you said you're willing to meet with people. I literally said on the bottom of the action letter, if you have any questions, contact me. I'm not hard to find. You know where I am. It's interesting the things that I've been accused of. It was suggested that I was part of the reason why Ironwood shut down. My involvement in that was the same as every other teacher on my campus, hearing after staff member after staff member after staff member, having student after student after student after student come out positive, having a large chunk of my population go virtual because they were in quarantine, having the health department call me and say you were a direct exposure on this date, except now my notes also show that you were a direct exposure on this date, this date, this date, and you have one more pending. That was my involvement in the going virtual of Ironwood High School. I was elected by my members to this position, and I will be the whipping boy to this position, and that's fine. I have no problem with that. But I don't work for the taxpayers. I work for my district. You sign my paychecks. The taxpayers in the state don't pay my paychecks. I don't work for the public. I work for my district. The same as everyone else. And as far as the working conditions of other people, unionize. This is what unions do. We work on working conditions, and I know you have one. So I don't understand. I don't understand why I'm still here. I don't understand why I'm still talking about this. There are bigger things that we need to work on in this district. We need to look at retention of teachers. We need to look at recruitment for next year. We need to look at our staffing. We need to look at funding loss, and we need to look at lobbying our elected officials, Ms. Pangarelli, to increase our funding and hold us harmless for this year and all the virtual time that we've had, and our students and families who chose to go virtual. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that concludes public comment. Moving on to section 7.1. These are items that were pulled from the consent agenda. Memorandum of Understanding between Arizona Gear Up and Peoria Unified School District. Ms. Underhill.
Yes, I just wanted to pull this out because I'm familiar with that program. It's been around for a very long time, and I just think it's a really great opportunity for our district. They'll be working with Peoria High School, I understand, and helping those students to sort of launch and ensure that they make all the things that they need to do in order to get ready for college. I just had a couple questions in regard to the program itself. And one was around just parent involvement. I know from having previously been involved in the program, parent involvement and engagement was a big piece, because obviously if you're talking about college preparation and the FAFSA and all those things, it's critical that parents be on board. And then the second thing, they mentioned a summer program for 10th grade students, and I just wanted to find out how those fees were covered, because I noticed that it's not a large sum of money, obviously, for the district.
Good evening, President Sandoval, Mrs. Underhill, members of the Governing Board. On behalf of Dr. Bell, the details of the MOU and the program are in the agenda item. As far as some of the specifics that you're asking about, Dr. Bell and team could certainly follow up with a Friday report to answer those questions.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Board members, any other questions, comments on 7.1? Ms. Hill? No? Dr. Sorensen? Ms. Pingerelli? All right, I don't have any either. I do need a motion to approve 7.1, the MOU between Arizona Gear Up and the Peoria Unified School District.
I move to approve 7.1, the Memorandum of Understanding between Arizona Gear Up and the Peoria Unified School District.
I'll second that. Ms. Contra, we have a motion by Ms. Underhill and a second by myself. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, board members. All right, moving on to 7.2, the Human Resources Report. I know we have public comment on this particular line item. Board members, any comments, questions on the Human Resources Report? Ms. Hill? Oh, Dr. Sorensen? No. Ms. Underhill? No. Ms. Pingerelli? Okay. All right. I don't have any questions, comments on this line item either, but we do have public comment from Ms. Heather Rooks.
Hello again, board members and superintendent. I wanted to go over an employee contract I got from the Peoria Unified School District Public Records. This is a certified employee blank contract. I just thought this would be helpful to go through with new employees coming in the district on the resource report. Few key points to go over. It said, employee agrees to fulfill the terms of his/her contract unless a release has been obtained from the board. Employee acknowledges and agrees that the board may at any time terminate this contract. Employee agrees to perform well and faithfully the duties of the position assigned by the board through its superintendent. Employee shall become familiar with and agrees to adhere to all district rules, regulations, policies, and procedures now existing or hereafter enacted or amended, and all applicable state and federal laws and State Board of Education rules now existing or hereafter enacted or amended. Under GBEB policy staff conduct, all employees of the district are expected to conduct themselves in a manner consistent with effective and orderly education and to protect students and district property. The president of the PA did not behave professionally under the GBEB staff conduct policy when she and her treasurer used school district emails for a sick out. Yes, employees are entitled to sick leave, but we know that that sick day was not true. It was used inappropriately and abused contracts. We have a constitution in the United States we all should be abiding by. If we don't, we have anarchy. So why does the board and superintendent have these contracts, rules, policies, if you're not going to abide by them or have your employees not abide by them? Are you okay with anarchy? President Sandoval, why are you okay with an employee still working for the district when she violated her contract and PUSD policy? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rooks. Board members, I do need a motion to approve 7.2, the Human Resources Report.
I move that we approve 7.2, the Human Resources Report.
I'll second. Ms. Contra, we have a motion by Ms. Underhill, a second by myself. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, board members. Okay, moving on to Section 8, Action Items. 8.1, Consideration and Approval of Employee Health Benefits for the 2021-2022 school year. Looks like Dr. Davidson and team. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
And ma'am.
Thank you, President Sandoval, members of the board, Dr. Reynolds. This evening's presentation is one that you see annually come to the board for a recommendation to approve our benefits package that we give to our employees, those that are eligible. So tonight I just have a handful of slides for you. And also, I wanted to introduce Ms. Christy Davis. She is our Benefits and Compensation Manager, and she's here to answer any real specific questions that we may have regarding our benefits offering. So, using the slideshow tonight, Christian, if you can go and click that for me. We just wanted to highlight some key items about the renewal. First and foremost, that there is a 3.99% increase to our medical premiums. Our intent tonight in coming to the board and asking you to consider letting our net position with Valley Schools Employee Benefits Group be used to, I guess, take on that cost instead of sending it over to our employees. And thirdly, if you recall, and I'm not certain if you looked at last year's presentation, but we had described going from 3 offerings to 2. Based on this year's experience reports and just the fact that we've been working through the virus, we recommend to make no changes to those plan offerings and continue to offer the HDHP buy-up plan. So with that said, we still would like to move forward with 3 medical plans that our employees have access to, and that's the traditional PPO, the high deductible health plan, the buy-up option, and then of course the base option. And we provided just some information for you to see regarding each of those plans. What we do know is that the high deductible health plan, that third bullet, you see that not only does an employee have an option to earn $775 in wellness money, but also there is a contribution to their health savings account. So it's for those employees that are very healthy, that becomes quite an opportunity for them. Next, please. In regards to our ancillary benefits, and again, Ms. Davis can speak to some of these, we have some great news to tell you tonight, but also to our employees that there is a rate decrease, as you can see in the Colonial Accident and Hospital plans, and that there is no additional rate increases on any of the other offerings that we have available to our employees. Next, please. So where do we go from the future? 2 things. Number 1, with your approval tonight, we'd like to then move forward with our open enrollment. We will continue to offer enrollment virtually, again, this year for employees, but also let you know we also have great amount of supports for those employees. They can come in and meet with Ms. Davis and her team. They can also set up Teams meetings, phone calls, and in years past, we've also provided supports from Valley Schools where our employees can have someone sitting right alongside them as they register for their, enroll for their benefits. Secondly, this was recommended to us, and it's something we've talked about for a period of time. After our employees go through the enrollment process and the benefits are fresh in their mind, we're going to be working with Valley Schools to set up a survey for our staff to really give them the opportunity to tell us exactly what they like and don't like about our offerings, and to see if we can use that information to guide us into the next year. I think it's important to hear what our employees are looking for, but also what we do know and why I feel comfortable bringing this to you tonight. I believe this is our 6th or 7th year where we have not had to raise the cost of our benefits plans to our employees. So that's an exciting thing, and I don't think every district can say that. So with that said, I'll stand here for any questions, and again, Ms. Davis is here to support the conversation.
Dr. Davidson, Ms. Davis, thank you both very much. Questions, comments? Ms. Hill?
No.
Okay. Dr. Sorensen? Sir. Ms. Underhill?
It's so great. I'm so glad to hear that we're going to be able to, cover that, and I appreciate that. And I also appreciate the thought of the survey. I think that's very forward-looking. This is just, could you just explain to me what the second bullet, the HDHP buy-up means?
Yes, I'd be happy to answer that. The HDHP buy-up plan was intentionally meant to be a stepping stone, as it were, to let individuals dip their toe in the pool of a high deductible plan.
Okay.
It has a $1,400 deductible, so it has a much lower deductible for people to become familiar with that plan. We don't contribute anything into that HSA plan because it is that stepping stone versus the base plan that has a $2,800 deductible.
That's great. Okay. And that's really great about the wellness, because it really, with those 2 things, it really kind of takes away from that larger deductible. So that's fantastic. So thank you for putting together such a balanced plan. Appreciate it.
Thank you for that, Ms. Underhill. Ms. Pingrelli?
Yeah, I see that. So we had a 3.99% increase in the medical premiums this year. And I'm glad that it's being absorbed, so it's not being passed on to the employees. In the past, did the medical premiums go up And was it absorbed, or did they just stay flat?
President Sandoval, Ms. Pingarelli, I'll speak to last year. I don't know if you recall, but last year, the claims also did go up, and we did use that same balance to absorb those costs.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pingarelli. Dr. Davidson, Ms. Davies, thank you both very much. We always talk about ensuring that we are providing world-class benefits to our associates in a way that, doesn't always impact their paychecks. So certainly appreciate the efforts in always looking and continuously to improve and really take a look at what's out there to make sure that we're doing so. So really appreciate your intentionality in that regard. Thank you. So with that said, if no other further comments, questions, I do need a motion to approve 8.1. I'll move that we approve 8.1, consideration and approval of employee health benefits for the 2021-2022 school year.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Pingarelli. Ms. Contra, we have a motion by myself and a second by Ms. Pingarelli. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, board members.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. All right, moving on to 8.2, discussion and consideration of retention stipend for certified, classified, and administrative staff members. Ms. Myers, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, President Sandoval, members of the governing board, Dr. Reynolds, and guests. Tonight I will share information about the budget team's work to date related to retention stipends. I will also provide information on recommendations that have been made to date by the budget team, as well as provide historical information regarding retention stipends in the district and specific recommendations for staff who return next year. I have previously shared that the budget team began meeting on February 1st, and there have been 3 meetings to date. 2 formal recommendations have been made by the team related to benefit renewals, which we just presented and you approved in the last agenda item, and retention stipends for fiscal year 2022. Additional recommendations are expected to be brought forward to the governing board at the first board meeting in April. Over the last 6 years, retention stipends have been recommended by the budget team and administration for certified employees who continue with the district and return their contracts on time. Classified employees became eligible for retention stipends in fiscal year 2018. Retention stipends are for 1 year only, and they are paid from a non-maintenance and operations funding source and are evaluated annually for continuation in the future. Although retention stipends are not guaranteed and are evaluated on an annual basis, the budget team felt very strongly that staff who return in the new school year should be recognized with a retention stipend. The team also felt that if funding was available, that the retention stipend amount should increase and be made available to all employee groups. Accordingly, the budget team and administration is recommending a $500 retention stipend for all eligible certified, classified, and administrative staff who return to the district for employment next year. The cost of the retention stipend is projected to be $2.1 million. That will be paid from an eligible non-M&O funding source, specifically Medicaid and public schools. This concludes the retention stipend presentation and recommendations. At this time, Dr. Davidson and I are both available to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Questions, comments, board members? Ms. Hill.
Yeah, actually, I think I do have a few questions for you with regard to this. I'm just trying to wrap my head around it a little bit. So you said it was $2.1 million that it's going to cost. Does that include both the $100 increase for the teachers and the $500 now that we're going to be paying or would possibly be paying for administrators as well?
Thank you, President Sandoval, Mrs. Hill. That is correct. Last year, the retention stipend was $1.6 million. The increase to $500 and the inclusion of administrative staff has a cost of 2.1. That's our projection.
Okay. And it looks like, you know, just looking at the numbers here, just 4 years ago, we were paying $250. So it has literally doubled in just a course of 4 years, which is, that's a lot. So I'm kind of just looking at crunching the numbers here. I didn't go, the report didn't go further back than 2015, 2016 school year. So I'm not sure what we were paying prior to the 250. But like I said, it looks like we're doubling the cost. And I guess the questions that I would also want to attach to that is, do we have a number as to how many teachers we've actually lost or have left the district, like within the past 2 years, to actually kind of validate that, you know, this is actually working, that, you know, this is worth the money, basically?
Thank you, President Sandoval, Mrs. Hill, members of the governing board. The questions that you're asking are very similar to questions that the budget team has asked in conversation over the years when it comes to the retention stipend. And it has been a mechanism to retain staff. We always try to attract, recruit, retain, and other districts offer similar stipends. And so as time went on, with available funding, the focus was initially on certified staff. And then as funding was made available, we were able to include our classified staff. That was very important. And then those two retention stipend amounts became the same, the $400 for each employee group last year. Again, looking at a year-by-year analysis based on available funding, and that's a key consideration. The team felt it was important, especially after this particular year, to ensure we were offering a retention stipend to our employees and to increase it if possible.
Yeah, I guess I was just trying to question whether or not an extra, we'll say $100 is actually worthwhile, if that's going to be like a deal breaker, basically. And you know, see if how many administrators, for instance, because we were not paying $500 for administrator cost, and now we're tacking on $500 per administrator that we have not paid before, so that actually compounds the number quite a bit. So I was just trying to figure out, do we have any idea of how many administrators maybe have left the district within the past 2 years to qualify for something like this, that it would actually help retain, you know, the administrators?
Thank you. I will look to Dr. Davidson for comments on those statistics, which can also be provided if we don't have them available this evening in a Friday report. But I will comment that the cost for adding our administrative team is approximately $75,000 out of that total.
Okay, that's good to know too. So it's $75,000. Okay. And can you remind me one more time, the $2.1 million, where does that exactly come from? You said there was a fund. What fund was that again? I don't know if I caught it.
Thank you. President Sandoval, Mrs. Hill, members of the board, we would use a non-M&O funding source, which typically is either Medicaid in public schools or indirect cost. Medicaid in public schools is reimbursements and monies that we receive for participating in the Medicaid program that's administered through the state access. There's also a federal funding component because we provide services like occupational therapy, speech pathology, those types of supports to our students. And by statute, the monies can be used for any M&O eligible cost. Now, of course, Medicaid in public schools is not a guaranteed annual funding source. It's dependent in part on the federal funding as well as state level reimbursement rates, as well as ongoing participation. So we wouldn't normally use Medicaid in public schools as a funding source for salaries, for base support salaries, and that's why it's a good option for one-time payments.
Okay, so basically it won't impact the taxpayers specifically is what I was trying to narrow down here.
It's not a levy fund.
Right, okay, all right. Thank you so much, I appreciate it.
Ms. Hill, just, Dr. Davidson may have had some statistics around the annual churn you're asking about. Do you want him to speak on that, or?
Yes, I mean, actually, if you have that information, that would actually be very valuable to me if you know those numbers.
President Sandoval, Ms. Hill, I don't have that at the top of my head, but that is something we do track annually, our retention rates. So I'll certainly send that over to every board member so you have that piece of information. But I wanted to add on behalf of this conversation and on behalf of the budget team, right, which is made up of a variety of stakeholders from classified, certified, and administration. This retention stipend is, at least my summary would be, it's in honor of the work that everybody has been doing in this very trying year. So please note the additional $100. We talked about that with our team, and right now, could I tell you that that's going to be the make or breaker in regards to someone coming back to work with us? As you heard our staff talk about the importance of working conditions, something we need to consider for sure. But I guess on behalf of every employee group, it was very important for every group to be represented, I guess, on behalf of the budget team during this conversation in the last month. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Dr. Sorensen, questions, comments?
Yeah, I guess I'd just like to say thank you to the Budget Committee, A, for absorbing the cost of health insurance and also allocating these stipends and I definitely appreciate adding administrators onto that list because I think often they're overlooked and they're great leaders in this district. And $500 stipends are really not that much. I can tell you right now, I work in a district and we're hiring teachers. And I know what we offer, and I know what Peoria offers. So I'm very, very grateful to the work to finding this stipend money. And I was going to ask why it doesn't go to the base, but you already answered that. So thank you very much. But I did want to ask, is the start date of the budget team committee intentional in regard to, does starting in February give us a tactical advantage to know more about the budget? Why don't we start in like a January or October to maybe hopefully get contracts out earlier? So could you kind of explain the February 1st date of that committee work?
President Sandoval, Dr. Sorensen, members of the board, we normally have our first meeting in late January, so we were slightly off by a couple of weeks, but historically it's been late January. And one of the main reasons for that is we wait for the proposed executive budget from the governor, as well as the legislative session to start, as well as estimates on what the inflation funding percentage might be, and where we might have a better idea on funding, for instance, the 5th year of the district additional assistance restoration, for example. That's something that we've included in our pro formas. So if you start in October, we don't have some of that information that comes from the legislative process or the governor's budget and what's being proposed, where we have a feel for what we can consider in our pro forma budget. So historically, we've never started before December here in Peoria Unified. Some districts that might have a 15% override, or if they're using carry forward, for instance, might start a little earlier because they're going to those other wells. We're grateful that our override renewed, and we always like to wait for some of those projections to come at a state level, which we then pull into our pro forma as we start working with our team.
So we could potentially start in December like we've done in the past, hypothetically. We wouldn't be at a disadvantage to finding out some of that information that you referred to.
What I was, if I should may clarify, we've on occasion, years past, had a kickoff meeting in December and looked at some past information, the AFR as an example, the budget, things like that. But January is really where that pro forma information can begin to be compiled, because we're waiting on state data to start that process. Districts that start earlier oftentimes are using other mechanisms to help start their work. But it's something we look at and would be very open to if we had enough data to have a solid pro forma.
President Sandoval, if I could, Dr. Sorensen, if I could just jump in as well. And one of the things that, as Ms. Myers and I work together as we approach that budgeting process, is that in this year specifically, we wanted to hold as long as we could to make sure that we were very confident in what we were going to be able to offer our employees and work through that budget team and the dollars that they would have to work with. So that was also went into just It's why we were delayed just a few weeks, because we wanted to make absolutely sure that as we entered these conversations, we knew exactly what we were going to be able to do. The other thing I'd like to point out as well is this is something that we bring to you on a yearly basis. So you're not, when we talk about these retention stipends, you're not committing to a multi-year commitment to employees. So the vote that you're taking tonight is for this stipend for this year, and if this were something that the budget team were working through next year, we would bring it back to you again. So it's not a lifelong commitment.
Yeah, I definitely knew the volatility of this year definitely changed our timeline and funding and things of that nature. So thank you very much, and thank you to the committee for their work.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Ms. Underhill, questions, comments?
Well, thank you, Ms. Hill and Dr. Sorensen. Those were great questions and very helpful to clarify some things. I don't have any questions. I do think it's great that, again, that the committee was able to find that money, because it's, kind of a very minimal amount per person based on the hours and the expectations that have been in place for this year for certain. So, yeah, just certainly appreciate your work on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Underhill. Ms. Pingrelli.
Yes, thank you for your work also. I just wanted to ask you, I know we talked about it a few board meetings ago. What's the shortfall that PUSD will be encountering in their budget this year? You had quoted something like 9.2 million last time.
Thank you, President Sandoval, Mrs. Pingrelli, members of the governing board. Yes, at our December budget revision and with the updates, we talked about what we were projecting, and I always like to qualify it because this has been a fluid year, and we have to look at 40th day, 100th day, and there's also reporting with our distance learning through April 16th, so I want to qualify that for final adjustments. But with the notice we did receive from ADE for our reduction in funding because of distance learning being funded at 95% versus 100%, our calculations right now, taking into consideration reimbursement from the ESG grant, reductions in enrollment as a whole, we believe it's $9 million. And so that was a projection that I shared previously.
Okay. And then for your opinion then, you're fine as the CFO, you're comfortable with the $500 per person?
President Sandoval, Mrs. Pingrelli, members of the governing board, yes, I am confident in that number.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pingrelli, Ms. Underhill, Dr. Sorensen, Ms. Hill, for your questions, comments. Ms. Myers, this has been one of the items that I know since elected I've continued to push for, and certainly the expansion of it, into our other employee groups. So I certainly appreciate you and team looking at that every time we're able to, and include all of our associates. Look, I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, we're one of 3 districts, across our state. I believe it's one of 3, please correct me if I'm wrong, that have, continued to have had our, face-to-face learning model in addition to our virtual, which has been informed, not only by our teachers and staff, but certainly our parents as well, to ensure that, we are putting our students in the best position to be successful. So that said, I'm absolutely, just thank you, for again, being thoughtful, of what everyone has gone through. But, I do see this as something that, that we'll continue to take a look at, right, post pandemic. So that said, I mean, I'll continue to, just throw in everyone's head, as we're looking at our budgets, how we also take a look at, those, the COVID stipend that, I brought up over the past, couple board meetings. That said, thank you again for all of your work, Ms. Myers and team. I really appreciate it. Now, real quick, Dr. Sorensen brought up a question around timing. One of the things that I think we've gotten better at as a district is the timing on when we are presented, with that budget for the subsequent year, and giving us at least a board meeting to absorb and discuss before we actually have to make, a final decision on the budget. I would certainly, and I believe my fellow board members would appreciate the opportunity to have that time to absorb and then
at least over one board meeting, and then a subsequent board meeting where we actually have to act on it. So that would be appreciated.
And President Sandoval, members of the governing board, we have committed to that. The recommendations will be brought forward first meeting in April, and then that would provide the opportunity at the second meeting in April to have a vote. And also to follow up on projections that we've shared, Mrs. Pingarelli, please be aware that all information that had been shared to date was as of the 40th day. And then again, we will provide an update through the 100th day, and then again on the April 16th count number. And final adjustments will come through in our May budget revision. So I also want to be careful with that was a projection based on our 40th day. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. If no other further comments, questions, I do need a motion to approve 8.2.
I move that we approve 8.2, the retention stipend of $500 for certified staff, classified staff, and administrative staff.
I'll second that. Ms. Contra, we have a motion by Ms. Underhill and a second by myself. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, board members. Thank you, Ms. Myers. All right, moving on to 9.1. Item for discussion, the health data update. We do have a public comment tied to this line item. So after Mr. Moss presents, we will allow for public comment prior to board discussion. Mr. Moss.
President Sandoval, members of the board, I'm here on our regular update of our COVID information. Again, with good news to present, which is always positive. You can see that our case rates, as we've talked about, have declined sharply. Around 300 cases per 100,000 have declined in the last 2 weeks. The percent positivity has declined almost in half and moved into the yellow or the moderate range. The moderate range is 10 and below. Our COVID-like illness, our hospitals, as you've heard probably in the news, have begun to slack off, and you can see that we've actually moved again almost half a reduction and moved into the good range. The green there, the 3.8% is all we're getting in terms of COVID-like illness in the hospitals. So positive news all the way around on those are district-wide benchmarks. When we look at the future, and we've done this before, I've shown you this before, each of those lines represent, again, a single day's number of cases. With the black line is the rolling 7-day average of those cases over that time period. I've put the dots on there or show you what actually the information we're reporting, because we always report about 10 or 12 days back. And so the information of 175, 9.4, and 3.8 is actually information from around the 213 time period. So when we look at that list, and what I really want to be able to tell you is, I want you to notice that the line is actually flattening out. And so we don't believe that this week we're going to get as big a decrease as we've had in the past. You can see from 130 to 26, we had a very steep curve there on a decline. We're beginning to flatten out there at the bottom, and so I would say it's still going to go down a little bit, but I don't perceive it's going to go down as much as it has in the past. We may, and I'm crossing my fingers, we may make it below the 100 mark, which would move us into the moderate range, yellow in cases also. So that's kind of the goal for next week. I'm working on it. Don't know what I can do, but I'm working on it. In addition, you're all aware that we track not only the whole district, but we look at each individual school based upon our instructional change model. And we have good news in that front also, in that in the last 2 weeks, we've had 0 schools who have run through that process, because we've not had anyone who has come close to meeting any of the triggers that would cause that conversation to occur. And so we've had no changes in any classrooms, grade levels, or schools. They've all remained in person for the whole time that they've been there. We've normally given you some information at this time about vaccines. I think we got that at the beginning of the meeting, and so we've left that off. But I also think that Ms. Airy wants to provide a little bit of a milestone, I think, for our CRT, which is the COVID response team. I think they had a little milestone the last couple days.
Well, thank you, Mr. Moss. And on behalf of the CRT and Dr. Davidson, who joins me with supporting that team and that the work that they do, I shared with Dr. Reynolds, we had some kind of breaking news come through on Wednesday morning that it was the first time in 159 days that we had not had to hold a CRT team meeting in the morning in order to run through and process cases. We had no cases reported that morning. I am also pleased to share that this is now 2 days in a row that we have come in first thing in the morning. We had some trickle in the afternoon, but certainly knock on anything you can find. We are showing, if you have been checking our dashboard, which we do update every morning and then provide a weekly recap on Friday afternoons. But you'll notice when you look at that, a significant decline in cases that have impact on our schools. And so we are certainly very pleased to report that. Thankful for the work of that team, but pleased to report a little bit of a reprieve from their work and certainly safer schools.
And we stand for questions.
Thank you for that, Ms. Airy, Mr. Moss. Questions, comments, board members? Ms. Hill? Yeah, Dr. Sorensen? No, sir. Yep. Ms. Underhill?
Well, I'm just concerned that you guys are going to get bored with all of
Mr. Rinaldi, good, perfect. Very good, Mr. Moss, Ms. Underhill, thank you both very much. All right, we do have public comment tied to this line item, and that comes from Ms. Heather Rooks.
Hello again, board members and superintendent. I just wanted to say thank you for continuing to keep our schools open. I think PUSD is awesome for keeping the schools open, and we should be leading for other districts in Arizona. I've had some concerns with the Peoria Unified School District showing favor of the COVID-19 vaccine. We have been asked here in your boardroom by administration if we have had our vaccine and if we would like to take a photo to put on the district's website. Is this not a HIPAA law violation, asking board attendees if we have had the vaccine? Are we going to start excluding attendees if we don't have the vaccine? Where is the support on social media for your employees who don't want the vaccine? This can start becoming uncomfortable for others who don't want the vaccine if they only see their district showing support for the ones who are getting the vaccine. A teacher at Liberty High School had asked his freshman class to raise their hands if they were getting the COVID vaccine, and then asked to raise their hands if you are not getting the vaccine. Clearly, we need to be working on educating employees to not ask anyone, including students, about their personal medical health and teaching about HIPAA laws. Another point to make is, what is the district's liability plan since they have been advocating for the COVID vaccination? Has any of the board or the superintendent explored the liability of the vaccine? Some parents want to know more about the cleaning product chemical that is used in the classroom. What are the side effects? What research is behind this on why Peoria chose this? The Buckeye Terminator cleaning spray is being sprayed on the kids' desks during class. It has ammonium in it. Can parents choose something else for their child to use on the desk that is not harmful? For example, my kids have eczema and allergies, and I don't want that cleaning product on their desk. It flares up their skin, it flares up their allergies. Last question that a lot of parents have on their mind is, if the Maricopa County lifts the mask mandate over the summer, will masks be optional in the school year starting August 2021? Will you still quarantine kids who are in contact tracing in class? Social distancing is causing our kids' lunches to be cut short, and they don't have time to eat. That's happened to my kids. So I understand you're trying to be safe this year, but it's causing other issues. And so a lot of parents want to know what's going to happen next year. I know it's hard to plan for a future, But I think that's going to make a lot of decisions for parents who don't want to continue in our district because they're not giving options to those parents and to those students. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rooks. Board members, any other additional questions, comments? Nope. Good. All right. Dr. Reynolds and team, if we can just make sure that we get back with Ms. Rooks, that'd be appreciated. Thank you. All right, moving on to section 10, informational reports. Report on upcoming meetings and events, 10.1. Ms. Airy.
President Sandoval, members of the board, one quick addition that is not listed on the upcoming meetings and events report, and it just developed this week. The Peoria Education Foundation is pleased to come up with a way to celebrate this year's scholarship recipients. I know many of you have attended their events in the past where they're able to honor and recognize the scholars with the scholarship money that they'll be receiving towards their post-secondary opportunities. They will be holding an event on March 10th. It will be outdoors, socially distanced in the courtyard at Raymond S. Kellis High School with very limited attendance, but certainly the governing board is welcome to be there. A short, but hopefully very sweet opportunity for them to receive that recognition, get a photo, and certainly be able to celebrate afterwards with their family. So we'll follow up with you with additional details, but did want to ask that you save the date, and we hope you'll be able to join that event.
Ms. Airy, can you repeat the date on that?
Certainly, it is Wednesday, March 10th, and it is 5 p.m.
Thank you. All right, moving on to 10.2, legislative, state, and local updates. Ms. Myers.
Thank you, President Sandoval. Members of the governing board, tonight I will share state-level economic information for Arizona. Even in the midst of a global pandemic, Arizona's economy continues to be strong. I have previously shared that the state budget is projected to have a record surplus. Economic data is also highlighting that the job and housing markets are also doing very well. The Arizona Office of Economic Opportunity released a report projecting that the state will add more than 325,000 jobs between spring of last year and spring of 2022, which accounts for, or is projected to account for, a 5.5% annualized growth rate. This growth is expected to occur statewide in all 15 counties in every sector except for government. In addition, the housing market is looking robust for the Phoenix area in 2021. Realtor.com recently forecast home sales in the valley will jump 11.4% over last year's levels, which is more than the national average. The volume of home sales is also contributing to increasing home prices. According to Zillow.com, Arizona home values have increased 16.5% over the past year. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Moving on to our informational reports, 10.3, budget, facilities, planning, and construction reports. These reports are on our website. 10.4, district budget reports for the month of January 2021. 10.5, district enrollment reports for the month of January 2021. Again, these reports are on our website. Moving on to section 11, other business. 11.1, board member opportunity to readdress agenda items. Does any board member have an item that they would like to readdress? Ms. Hill? Okay. Dr. Sorensen? No, sir. Yeah. Ms. Underhill?
No, thank you.
Ms. Pingerelli? Thank you. I don't either. 11.2, request for agenda items for future governing board meetings. Ms. Hill, any items that you would like to add to a subsequent governing board meeting? No. Dr. Sorensen? Ms. Underhill?
Not at this time.
Okay. Ms. Pingerelli?
I do have a couple. Let's see. I wanted to start with looking at how we're going to address any academic achievement shortfalls due to COVID-19. And then also, I know I put on the future agenda item before the Florida virtual. Just, I know it didn't do well with a lot of parents, especially with younger kids. How we're going to address that, if we need to continue using virtual platform, if we're going to, I think Dr. Bell said we were going to do our own, is what she was achieving or looking into. Just if, if we have to stay virtual, if we can use a different platform. And then the other, I've had comments about public records request, and I just, even in the Friday report, if you could put the policy for a public records request and pricing, and then also how many public records requests do we get, kind of month by month.
So Ms. Pingarelli, just to clarify, so the public records request is a Friday report, is that correct?
Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to, I know we had increased the pricing a year or two ago. I just want to just go through that.
Okay.
And then just get an idea of how many public records requests we're getting.
Gotcha. Okay. I'll second that.
President Sandoval, if I could just ask for some clarification, Mrs. Pingarelli. Is the Florida virtual, it's a very short answer. Can we put that in a Friday report as well?
That's fine.
On our relationship moving forward?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, Dr. Reynolds, just to clarify, so the academic achievement, and I don't disagree, I think that's a great discussion to have. I know we're having a meeting, or the district is putting together an update on its strategic plan, which is going to include some of the findings, best practices, opportunities as a result of COVID. Will that be discussed?
What I would recommend, and what we're planning on, is bringing that as a separate issue in our either in our April meetings as an agenda item. We will bring to the board to talk about learning losses, achievement gaps, our plan for summer work, transitional work, moving from 8th to 9th grade, bringing that to the board for a presentation in April.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Okay. I will second that as well. And I think I'm just going to formalize, I'll second the Florida virtual request as well, okay, to make sure we get that in the Friday report. Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Pingarelli. That said, Dr. Reynolds, if you can help me kind of think through this real quick, but as we take a look at COVID and certainly impact that it has had on our kids, absolutely. Also, I'm wondering if we can take a look at the impact that COVID has had on our Title I funding, right? And how we may be overcoming those gaps as a district. I think that if we can, and I'm sure, I don't know if that's going to be discussed in the strategic plan. I know we have a lot to discuss when we get to that particular time and item. I mean, so with that said, even if it comes as a Friday report, to understand, where the gap exists and what we're doing today to, make sure that our students who are on, free and reduced, who need the services, how we're ensuring that the services are still being exercised and executed on, and what the shortfall may guide us to do or require us to do in the subsequent academic year to make sure that those students are served again in a way that they deserve. Because I would imagine, pre-pandemic, we had, I think the individual mentioned earlier this evening, over half of our schools are Title I schools, and I've got to believe during these times that the need has become even greater. So just want to understand where we're at and what we're doing.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
We'll provide that information and start in the Friday report, and then we'll go from there.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you, everybody. Okay, no other requests for future governing board meetings.
We move on to section 12, 12.1. I do need a motion to adjourn this meeting at, it looks like 7:51.
I will motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second?
Ms. Contra, we have a motion by Ms. Hill and a second by Ms. Underhill. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, everybody, for attending.